Hey everyone, welcome back to PR and Test Drive. Today we're testing out a rally car. This is the 2024 Subaru WRX GT. Coming in at about 47,000 Canadian dollars, this is the most expensive WRX you can get. It also only comes in automatic with the Subaru Performance Transmission. So, in today's video, we're gonna find out what this thing is like to drive and whether if you should or shouldn't get this trim. Let's get started. First off, the looks. A lot of people hated the look of this VB WRX, especially the cladding when this vehicle first launched, myself included actually. But now that it's out for a few years, I think it's growing on me, especially the front. I still do wish that Subaru would offer body colored or gloss black options for their customers though. Up front, you get LED headlights, LED fog lights, and for this GT trim, you also get these steering responsive headlights as well. In the center here, you get a gunmetal grille, which match really nicely with these rims over here. And then last but not least, and most importantly, you get a functional hood scoop so that your intercooler can get some nice fresh air. Which brings me to what's under the hood. An over-square 2.4 liter turbo Boxer 4 engine that puts out 271 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 258 pound-feet of torque all the way from 2,000 RPM to 5,200 RPM. This engine uses direct fuel injection, has a compression ratio of 10.6 to 1, and has a max turbo boost pressure of 12 psi. Of course, being a WRX, you can pair this engine with a 6-speed manual transmission or a Subaru Performance Transmission, which aka is a CVT. For this GT trim, only the Subaru Performance Transmission is available. And then finally, of course, this WRX has all-wheel drive, but not just any all-wheel drive. This has the Subaru full-time symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Over to the side, you get 18-inch gunmetal rims paired with Dunlop SP Sport Max GT600A tires that are 245 wide all around. McPherson strut in the front and a double wishbone setup in the rear. This GT also features adaptive dampers, which works wonder. We'll talk about it a little bit more on the road. In terms of differentials, both the front and the rear has an open diff, and in the center, the manual version get a viscous coupling limited slip differential, and for the automatic version, you get a variable torque distribution center diff. All right, over to the back side of the car. I still don't know how I feel about this big unpainted rear bumper. I feel like it needs just a little bit more color, even if it's just the exhaust surrounds. That'd be nice. But anyway, while we're at the exhaust, let's take a listen to how this sounds from the outside. The taillights on this WRX are also LED lights, and it has this glittery design in the interior of the lights, which looks really cool at night. Just sort of sparkles everywhere, which I think looks pretty nice. The trunk, it does open with a touch of button, but it kind of judders like that when it reaches the top, which I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe they should have added a little bit of dampening up top. That would have been nice. In terms of trunk space, you get a pretty decent amount of trunk space, and your rear seats fold down 60-40 split. A very decent amount of interior space for the rear seats. I get just enough headroom if I'm sitting upright and plenty of leg room in front. For reference, I'm 5'9", and the seat in front is adjusted to my driving position. In terms of materials, it uses soft touch and suede materials, which I really like, and it's the same materials that are used up front, which is great because unlike some other competitors in this segment, they don't do it like that. No rear vents in the rear here, but you do get heated seats, which is nice. Up front, unlike the US spec GTs, we do not get the Recaro Sport bucket seats. Only the RS trim in Canada, which is the TR trim in US, gets the Recaro bucket seats here in Canada. But I don't mind these seats at all. They're fairly supportive as is, and they've got this big WRX embroidery on the headrests, which looks really cool. Everything else in the cabin is built very well. They're all made in Japan, which is very good. And of course, you've got these classic sport aluminum pedals down here with a big footrest that's also in aluminum, which looks fantastic and I love it. And then you've got these carbon fiber looking trims, which I guess adds to the sportiness just a little bit, but I don't love it. In terms of tech, you get analog gauge clusters and a small little center screen that shows you actually quite a lot of information, along with your boost pressure, which is super important in a WRX. No head-up display on any of the trims here, but you do get different color lights that reflects on the windshield, kind of like a head-up display that's part of the eyesight safety system. As for your infotainment screen, you get a vertical 11.6-inch screen for most of your controls, but your temperature control and volume control still has physical buttons, which is great. In terms of the user interface, it's not the prettiest looking thing compared to some other competitors, and it is a little bit laggy as well. But the silver lining is that all of the icons here are huge, so that it's actually pretty easy to use while driving. Most trims also get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but I do have one big complaint. It's when I have Apple CarPlay open and I go ahead and change my drive modes, the drive modes screen pops up, but then when the drive mode screen disappears, I get brought back to the home screen instead of the Apple CarPlay screen, which then I have to go in and click the Apple CarPlay button or icon again to bring me back to Apple CarPlay. It's just a little bit annoying. I also do miss the boost gauges up here from the older generations because I thought that looked really cool. And then lastly, for this GT trim, you get an 11 speaker Harman Kardon sound system, which sounds pretty good. On that note, let's take it for a drive. Alright, I want to first start off with the power unit. Subaru has put in a new engine for this generation of WRX, replacing the 2-liter Turbo Boxer 4 with this 2.4-liter Turbo Boxer 4. So, bigger displacement means more power, right? Well, not really, because horsepower has only gone up 3 compared to the last generation, from 268 to 271. And torque figure actually remained the same at 258 pound-feet of torque. So what's the point of this new engine, you ask? Well, first of all, it has more tuning potential, which is something that a lot of WRX owner may plan to do. Secondly, with the engine displacement being a little bit larger, that means that less boost is needed to achieve the same amount of power, which in turn means that there's more response, less turbo lag, and a much more linear power curve, which in turn means better response, less turbo lag, and a more linear torque curve. This is very apparent when driving this WRX because the engine pulls from 2000 RPM all the way to pretty much breadline. This Boxer 4 is a fantastic engine in its own right. However, when placed into a WRX, it feels just a little bit too tamed. Part of the experience of driving a WRX, in my opinion, is the drama of the engine, the kick that you get when you hit boost, and the exhaust sounds. But in this generation, the engine is a little bit too refined, in my opinion, and the exhaust isn't as rowdy as I would expect as well. So overall, it just feels a little bit less dramatic than the previous generations. Speaking of exhaust, the stock setup does sound pretty decent from the outside, but when driving, it feels a bit muted in most of the rev range, aside from 1500 RPM to 2000 RPM. Between those ranges, you actually get quite a lot of droning, and it's really unfortunate because that's exactly the rev range that this CVT would put you when you're doing highway cruises. I guess I just miss the days where these came with an equal length header and made that proper Boxer rumble. Overall, I'm quite impressed with this transmission, but I wouldn't say that it is as good as the best automatic transmission like a ZF or like a DCT, for example. If I had to rank it, I would probably rank it above average in terms of automatic transmission, and the best CVT when it comes to driver engagement. I mean, listen to these shifts, it's pretty dang fast. Not too bad. The fuel economy with this powertrain is still not the best though. About 7.5 liters, 8 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, and 11 or 12 liters per 100 kilometers in the city, depending how heavy your right foot is, of course. Lastly, I want to talk about this WRX's handling and driving dynamics, something that Subaru has always done right in the past. For this generation, it's no exception. It feels nimble and agile on turn-ins and has extremely good grip exiting corners. Even on conditions like today where there's a whole lot of rain, if you drive on dirt roads, gravel, you'd have no problem. This symmetrical all-wheel drive system is fantastic. With the automatic versions, you don't get a limited slip central differential. Instead, you get a variable torque distribution differential, which actually puts more power to the rear wheels. 45 in the front and 55 in the rear in terms of base power split. So you can expect a little bit of a variation in terms of driving dynamics, because the manual version you get a viscous limited slip central differential with a base power split of 50-50 all around. The suspension on the GT trim is also fantastic. The adaptive damper feels noticeably different between the different drive modes, soft and comfortable in normal mode, and great amount of stiffness, very balanced still, it's not too stiff in Sport Plus. I do think that it is essential for Subaru to offer this adaptive dampers in the manual version though. Alright, what do you guys think about this top trim WRX GT? Is it worth $47,000 here in Canada? Or would you just get the WRX Sport with the SPT for $42,000 and give up the drive modes, adaptive dampers, and the Harman Kardon sound system? Or would you not consider a CVT at all when it comes to WRX? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.